Hi and welcome to this video on the Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. It is very seldom that mere ordinary people like John and myself secure ancestral halls for the summer. Mere means only, just. Only ordinary people like John and myself secure ancestral halls. That means halls owned by your ancestors. So they've been in your family for a long time, or they've been in someone's family for a long time. Halls is kind of like a posh mansion, a very grand house. Okay, next bit. A colonial mansion, a hereditary estate, I would say a haunted house, and reach the height of romantic felicity, but that would be asking too much of fate. Okay, colonial, colony, of a colony. So a mansion in a colony, probably the British colony. Hereditary, something that is passed on to you. So you've inherited this estate, this property. It was almost like a haunted house. And reach the height of romantic felicity means great happiness. So, and be very happy romantically. But that would be asking too much of fate. Still, I will proudly declare that there is something queer about it. So she's very happy that she's got this wonderful house for the summer, but still she is sure, she states that there is something strange about it. Else, why should it be let so cheaply, and why have stood so long untenanted? Else, if it wasn't so queer, or else, why should it be let, why should it be rented out to someone so cheaply? And why have stood so long untenanted, without a tenant, without anyone living in it? John laughs at me, of course, but one expects that in marriage. John is laughing probably because he can't understand why she is worried about the house. John is practical in the extreme. He has no patience with faith, an intense horror of superstition, and he scoffs openly at any talk of things not to be felt and seen and put down in figures. So John, the husband's name, is very practical. He has no patience with faith or religion or things like that. He hates superstition, and he scoffs, he makes fun of anyone talking about something that you cannot feel or see and, actually physically put a figure on. John is a physician, and perhaps, I would not say it to a living soul, of course, but this is dead paper and a great relief to my mind. Perhaps that is one reason I do not get well faster. So now we know the husband, John, is a physician, which is an old-fashioned word for a doctor. I would not say it to a living soul. I wouldn't say it to anyone. But this is dead paper. So she's writing her diary, a journal, and so it's just paper. And she feels a great relief writing it down. Perhaps that is one reason I do not get well faster. So we now know that the lady is sick, ill, and she is wondering if she doesn't get better because her husband John has no patience with things that you can't actually see or feel. Okay, let's carry on. You see, he does not believe I am sick. And what can one do? If a physician of high standing and one's own husband assures friends and relatives that there is really nothing the matter with one, but temporary nervous depression, a slight hysterical tendency, what is one to do? Okay, if a physician of high standing, if a distinguished doctor, a reputable doctor, and your own husband assures friends and relatives that there is really nothing the matter but temporary, just for a short time, nervous depression, a slight tendency to be hysterical. Hysterical means like uncontrolled emotion. What is one to do? One means just a person in general. My brother is also a physician and also of high standing, and he says the same thing. So I take phosphates or phosphites, whichever it is, and tonics and journeys and air and exercise, and am absolutely forbidden to work until I am well again. Phosphate is a chemical. It's a salt of phosphoric acid. Phosphite is a salt or ester of phosphorus acid. So she's not sure which medicine she takes. Personally, I disagree with their ideas. Their means her husband's ideas and her brother's ideas, the doctor's ideas. Personally, I believe that congenial work with excitement and change would do me good. Congenial means suited to you, appropriate for you. But what is one to do? I did write for a while in spite of them, but it does exhaust me a good deal, having to be so sly about it, or else meet with heavy opposition. So she did write for a bit, despite what they say, her husband and her brother. But writing does exhaust her a lot. She has to be very sly about it. She can't tell them she's writing. She has to do it in secret. Because if she tells them, they will be strongly opposed, heavily opposed. They will be very strongly against her writing. I sometimes fancy that in my condition, if I had less opposition and more society and stimulus, but John says the very worst thing I can do is to think about my condition, and I confess it always makes me feel bad. So here she sometimes fancies, that in her condition, wouldn't she be better if she had less opposition, if they weren't so against her writing? More society. Here society means mixing with people, more friendliness, more stimulus, more things that she would find stimulating or interesting, exciting. Wouldn't she be better? That's what this M dash is kind of. In her condition, she wonders, wouldn't she be better if she'd had more friendliness, more dealing with other people, and more things stimulating? She's wondering about that. But John says the very worst thing she can do is think about her condition. And I confess, and I must agree, I must admit, it always makes me feel bad. So she feels bad thinking about her condition. So I will let it alone and talk about the house. So I will leave my condition alone and talk about the house instead. The most beautiful place. It is quite alone, standing well back from the road, quite 3 miles from the village. So it's a very beautiful house. It's not connected to other buildings, it's just alone by itself, far away from the road and 3 miles away from the village. It makes me think of English places that you read about, for there are hedges and walls and gates that lock, and lots of separate little houses for the gardeners and people. There is a delicious garden. I never saw such a garden, large and shady, full of box-bordered paths, and lined with long, grape-covered arbours with seats under them. Now here, delicious, the garden itself is not delicious, but the things that grow in it are delicious, like lettuces and carrots and cabbage. She's never seen such a garden. It's large, it's shady, it's got lots of shade, full of box-bordered paths. Now, box is a small shrub or a small tree. So the garden's got lots of paths with small shrubs and trees on the borders of the paths. And it's lined, the garden is lined with long grape-covered arbours. Okay, an arbour is a place that is sheltered by branches of plants. So a sort of sheltered area covered with grape plants, with seats under them. There were greenhouses too, but they are all broken now. There was some legal trouble, I believe, something about the heirs and co-heirs. Anyhow, the place has been empty for years. So there was some legal issue with the house. Something about the heirs, that's the people who inherit the house when the owner dies, and co-heirs. A co-heir is someone who inherits, in this case the house, jointly with someone else. So she thinks there's been some sort of legal trouble. She's not sure, but anyhow, whether it's for that reason, the legal reason or not, the place has been empty for years. That spoils my ghostliness, I'm afraid, but I don't care. There is something strange about the house. I can feel it. That spoils my ghostliness means that doesn't fit well with the idea that the house has got ghosts and is haunted. The legal trouble, that's the real world. And that's why the house is empty, not because of ghosts. But she doesn't care about that. She still feels there's something strange about the house.